Whoever's here is here. Oral communications, anyone wish to speak on any item now on the agenda?
I would,
Go ahead.
if it's open. My name's Becky Steinbruner. I just want to say that many people, I held 3 public study sessions in an effort to help people understand and comprehend to make their way through the draft EIR for Pure Water Socal project, and people really struggled. I was disappointed that the district decided not to honor many requests by people to have an extension of public comment time, and I hope that you will reconsider. I think people really do need more time and would very much appreciate having more time. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we move on. Business, welcome new public members. Yes, indeed. Welcome. You're not quite a new member.
So this whole new member?
Right.
I've changed my stripes.
Yeah.
Welcome anyway.
Should we introduce ourselves, because not everybody knows each other? Okay. And I'm going to add in a twist, if you don't mind. Say if you're a cat or a dog person, if you have a job.
Let's get disruptive here.
I'm Pete Cartwright, I do not have a category.
Okay. I'm Ron Duncan. I'm a dog person, but I have 2 cats in my house. I'm the general manager.
Christine Lee, the O&M manager, and I can't decide.
It's an unfair question.
I'm Taj Dufour, I'm the engineering manager, and I'm a cat person.
Ken Gerard, I was on the finance committee, now I'm on the facilities committee. Actually, I have a hardscape patio with no responsibility for animals.
That's good.
So I'm Leslie Strom, the Finance and Business Services Manager, and right now I guess I'm a dog person, but at times in my life I have been a cat person.
I'm Shelley Flock, I'm the Conservation Customer Service Field Manager, and I have both cats and dogs. Love both.
I'm Larry Freeman. I've been a public member on this committee. Well, it's been renamed for a couple of years now, and I'm happy to be continuing. We don't have dogs or cats, although I'm allergic to cats. I keep getting asked by the neighbors to watch their cats when they're on vacation, so. And the cats like me, for whatever that's worth.
So I'm Bruce Daniels, I'm on the board, and we have cats. That's the welcome. Overview of the district's 20-year finance plan. Wonder who's going to do that?
So I'm just going to go through real briefly, because I have talked to the Finance Committee about this in the past, and I know I've talked to the Water Rates and Advisory Committee about this as well. But we're in the process of doing a finance plan, and the finance plan is the predecessor to doing a rate study. So both the finance plan and the rate study are being done by Raftellus Financial Consultants, and we're in the phase right now where we're working on the finance plan. The finance plan will cover a 5-year span of time. So what we're anticipating in that 5-year period is that we're likely looking at a supplemental supply project. So we're trying to set the finance plan up in such a way that we can accommodate those needs. So what we did is when we look at the finance plan, we first determine what we expect our revenue needs to be, or what we think they're going to be under current consumption scenarios. And I think right now, the last iteration I saw is we were basing our revenue assumptions on 2,900 acre feet, which is what the district customers actually utilized last year, which is up a little bit, I think, from what I presented at the finance meeting, which was 2,750 acre feet. But now that we've had a chance to look at those consumption numbers, we realize that we can go up slightly. And after we take a look at what our revenue assumptions are going to be, we start looking at some of our operating expenses. And obviously the good place to start for a finance plan is to start with our current year budget. And then from there, what we do is we put it through a cost escalation scenario, where we're taking each one of those buckets of costs and we're escalating it by an inflationary measure. And so our salaries usually come in around 6% over the course of time, a 6% increase annually, and our benefits usually about 5%. And those are all kind of regulated by existing labor contracts, and so that's kind of a hard assumption on our part. Our OPEB required contributions, we can usually calculate as a percentage of payroll roughly. We did want to put into the finance plan some money for pre-funding our OPEB and/or pension benefits. And then the rest of it is actually just using a base inflationary measure of 3%. So almost everything else is being inflated by 3% with the exception of our power for pumping and our hypochlorite costs for water quality treatment, and those are going up by roughly 5%. And that's just based on what we're seeing in terms of industry costs today. We know what our debt service is going to be on our existing debt instruments because we have 2 of them out there. We've got certificates of participation, which are COPs. We borrowed in 2011 and again in 2013 in order to do some CIP district projects. And so we do have debt service on both of those, and we know what those are going to be forecasted out for the next 5 years. But the other thing we're looking at is some of our other non-operating expenses. Our conservation program rebates, we were looking at a kind of anywhere from 0 to 3% increase in that. And then the other non-operating expenses were just the 3% inflationary rate that we're seeing on all of our other costs. So that kind of gave us a forecast on all of our operating expenditures. Then we needed to look real quick at our projects. So Taj had put together a series of costs for our construction projects that we expected actually out over the next 20 years. The finance plan is only looking at the next 5 years. So we took a look at Taj's proposed project schedule, and in order to do a heavy lift on a supplemental supply project, we needed to kind of look at what things did we maybe have some wiggle room on where we could maybe push them out a little bit. And so the items that you see in red are things that we really need to accomplish in the next 5 years, and the items that you see that are not in red are those projects that we think we might have a little play in the timing of them, and we might be able to delay them a little bit. Because we've asked the financial consultants to put together 2 different finance plan scenarios. One finance plan scenario will be a supplemental supply project with no grants. The other will be a supplemental supply project in the event we were to get grants. So if we get grants, I don't anticipate much change in our CIP schedule. It will probably stay pretty close to what Taj has already proposed. But if we don't get grants, these projects in black are projects that we may push out a little bit. So there's a lot of them, especially in the main replacements. Those are ones where we think we've got a little room to postpone. We've got some transmission projects that we can postpone and push out a few years. And then we've got some tank projects that we can postpone and push out a few years. These projects in red, we're gonna stick on our schedule because we wanna make sure that we keep up to date on those projects. But what this means is if we were not to get grants and we had to fully debt fund a supplemental supply project, we would push these other projects out, and then there would be a larger series of years right after supplemental supply came online where we would have some fairly robust CIP spending that we would need to do. So we asked the financial consultants to take a look at the impact of that as well. Now, I did ask the financial consultants to put in the Quail Run tank and transmission main, to go ahead and keep that in the finance plan, and to include debt financing for that as well. So that one's gonna stay where it is, just so we're aware.
That one's
So-
already on the shelf, 100% designed,
Yeah.
ready to go. Sequel's done.
So that's just a real brief overview on what we're working on in terms of a finance plan, how that impacts the rest of our CIP schedule, how we may need to kind of massage the timing of some of those projects a little bit.
Any questions or comments on those?
Just one comment or so the future water supply plan that's going to be incremental increase. Do you have a range of costs for that in your finance plan, like a high side and a low side, depending on the options of what actually gets built, or is it just
I think
grants or no grants?
I think they put in an expected, project cost of about $90,000. And then with grants,
90 million?
and $90 million, sorry.
Yeah.
90,000 would be great.
That would be
We could do
nice.
that out of PAYGO. But $90 million, and then they put in a grant scenario, $45 million,
Oh, so that's a big
or fully
range.
debt funded at 90.
Okay.
And there's also a scenario, the base case, if we don't do a project at all, we just do CIP.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
So you have all those contingencies in your finance plan, and the board can
Mhm.
make the adjustments accordingly?
Right.
Okay, that's great.
And this will be presented Tuesday night at the City of Capitola as a workshop before the regular board meeting. This in more depth, much more depth in rates and things like that. So if you're interested in attending that, it'll give you a deep dive into that aspect of it.
I have a question, if it's allowed.
Go ahead.
Can you please fill me in on what the Aptos Creek acquisition is about?
Well, we currently lease that well site, and we were discussing whether that should be purchased in the future,
Is that the T. Hopkins well? Is that what
the Aptos Creek well.
Aptos Creek one? So that's still on Aptos Creek though? On Aptos Creek Road?
It's called Aptos Creek well,
It's just near it.
yeah. It's in the same vicinity as T. Hopkins.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, bi-monthly update on CWP.
Yeah, so I'll take the lead on this, and any of staff welcome to jump in here. District's pure water Soquel project is being evaluated. I think the big thing on that is we have an EIR in process. The public comment period just closed after 45 days, and much effort to solicit information and comments from the public. So that closed yesterday, and the consultant ESA will take that now and compile those comments and do what they do with it, see how it impacts the evaluation that's ongoing. So that's that, and then rates associated with those scenarios, Leslie mentioned that, that'll be talked about Tuesday night. The update on the surface water pilot project for the city of Santa Cruz?
I'll cover that.
Okay, thank you.
On July 17th, the joint consultant for the city and the district presented, it was Black and Beach, presented to the district's board of directors kind of the summary of the results of the bench scale testing for mixing Santa Cruz water with district water. They're also going to be presenting to the city's water commission on August 27th. So you can, I mean, our presentation was recorded and is on our website, I think, for the viewing of that. Long story short, they found that using the city's water as is and the district's water as is, at least at the bench scale level, didn't pose any concern, as much concern as maybe was initially anticipated. However, there's still a monitoring. The next phase would be go to a kind of a full-scale isolated zone testing, and the state will dictate the sampling that needs to be done for that. But once that's vetted, then we can expand it to further sub-areas, bigger sub-areas. But our anticipation is to be ready to purchase water this coming winter if the city's conditions allow it. The isolated zone is roughly west of Socal Creek, that we can try to do that with.
It's good. Let me, Mr. Cartwright, since you're the newest member and probably the least knowledgeable, do you have any questions? Do you understand that project?
I do,
Okay.
and I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
Well, let me just ask, is it a significant contribution?
Right now, it's up to 300 acre feet. I think we're anticipating about 250 acre feet. That's what's been
So
negotiated.
it
at
won't
this
solve,
time.
it won't solve the
No,
problem,
yeah.
but, diversification builds resilience, and, it's maybe it leads to something bigger. We're not sure, but So it's not insignificant, for sure. Yeah, every
And it's
little
not
bit
free.
helps. And it's not free,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
just the
purchase the
evaluation.
water from the city.
If you get especially wet years, you get a little more water.
Not out of this, this is,
okay.
there was an, not a,
ISM&D,
Yeah, ISM.
mitigated negative deck that was
Yeah.
done.
Oh, so you're limited by that as to how much you can take.
yeah. This water's theoretically, I say that because the water gets all shifted around when it comes from Santa Cruz, but it's out of the North Coast streams, and they're literally
so-
small streams
Right.
that are, have fish.
In order to take more water from the San Lorenzo River, the city has to get an amendment to their water right.
Fish and game, fish and wildlife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the state, yeah, that, plus the state board, water resources control board. So
Okay.
Yeah, and the feds.
I think they're working towards that, it's just not in place.
It'll take forever, but it's good to work towards it.
They've been working on it.
Yeah.
What's the outlook on the isolated zone and the two wells we have that are problematic?
Do you wanna cover that one?
Right now, we are, modifying the O'Neill well, to try and get that back online. That work started this week. So, fingers crossed that will work, and we'll have O'Neill. And Main Street, the pump and, motor that need to be replaced in that well have been ordered, so we're just waiting for that, to install that. So there's, if we wanna get water in November, we need to start monitoring in October with the isolated zone, so, we're hoping we'll be able to do that. We did have internal discussions and then also with Black and Veatch about, the absolute need for doing the pre and post monitoring with the zone isolated, because if we don't have the wells, we'll probably not be able to meet peak demand. They said that they would prefer it just for pure data collection purposes, but not to, they didn't think that we needed to postpone the transfer project by getting those wells back online and being able to do a pre-monitoring period with that zone isolated. So,
That's good news.
yeah.
We have two more bits here too, stormwater and deep water.
You wanna fix one more?
Sure. At the last meeting, I gave a pretty detailed explanation of where we were with stormwater recharge, so collecting stormwater runoff and getting it down into the ground via recharge wells. And we went through a pretty extensive analysis of property within our service area that looked suitable. And then I think we started with about 20 properties, we narrowed it down to about 8, and then we further honed that down based on that analysis to 3 locations at the Seascape Golf Course. And with those 3 locations, we were able to quantify, this is how much water we think we might be able to capture in an average rainfall year. Again, it wasn't a huge volume of water, but it could, play a small role in helping recharge our basin. I think it was about 50 acre-feet of water per year for all 3 of those locations. We were working with the golf course management and their parent company to start doing some additional testing to refine those numbers. And then the golf course went up for sale. And nobody wants to talk to us anymore. So we've made several attempts, phone calls, emails, and they understandably, if they're in the middle of a property transaction, they don't want to be committing to any sort of arrangement for testing on site. So kind of waiting to see what happens with the sale of that property, and once that does settle out, then we plan to go back and talk to the new golf course owner and see if they're interested in taking up the project. But for the time being, the funds that were allocated to doing more work have been pulled out of the budget to support other projects that are further along. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, and the cost breaker.
Do you have injection sites for?
They're more like recharge wells. They're not going down all the way. You have to have at least a 10-foot buffer before you hit groundwater, and that provides for more water quality treatment. And the wells are not cheap, and our geography, our geology in our area is not as conducive to stormwater recharge, even in the Aromas aquifer, which is known to be more sandy. It's still not that great, is what we found from the analysis that we've done. There's a lot of clay soils, and it varies. You go 15 feet from one spot where there's a well and you have borings, and it's totally different. And so there's a lot of variability, and you really have to pinpoint exactly where you want to put a well to see how that well's got to be designed to get down below that clay. So there's a lot of unknowns, and again, not as great for recharge as we were hoping. We were hoping to find really sandy soils, and that's why we really focused on that area in the Aromas.
Somebody else is coming
So,
in.
Is
Do we
that
need another
good?
chair?
Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah,
Any
you're
questions on that?
Do we need another chair?
I'm not gonna stay, thank you.
Oh, I've got mine wrong,
So-
so I'll just stick with
the next one is Deepwater Desal. That's a
Battery?
project down in Moss Landing, a private venture
Sorry, I had
to
camera problems.
produce desalinated water and sell it to various entities. We have a memorandum of interest that if they move forward, we would be interested. And let's see, and that would basically be buying water at the cents. And they're in the midst of an EIR right now. So no real update on that. I just bring you back up to speed on that. So we'll see. Come on in, Michelle. How that continues to evolve.
Did Watsonville ever express interest in it, or Central Coast?
Watsonville, no, the farmers aren't interested in desalinated water as they've expressed in the past. But there are some other entities that have. I think Salinas being a big one. Thank you, Bruce. So I don't know, there's a lot going on down there. They have, their number one project is Pure Water Monterey, and that's being constructed now. So that'll be the first source that provides water, very similar to Pure Water Socal, what's being evaluated. Then to supplement that, it's gonna be Desal, and that's either Cal-Am water, or maybe this, or maybe there's another one down there.
So, okay.
That's it.
What is the status of that project?
It's in the EIR right now, it's
Uh-huh.
being conducted, and that's about all we know.
They're regulated by the State Water Board, who has regulations about taking water out of the ocean, and how you do it and how you can't do it. In particular, one of the big changes is that they now require that the intake be subsurface, under the sand or something.
Yeah.
And that's, or else you have to prove that it's impossible.
Right, you have to prove you can't do it by wells on shore, if you wanna go out to the ocean. So I think they're doing some work on that, further
Responding
into
to
that,
that.
yeah. responding to that.
Any other questions on these 4 items? We'll move on.
Excuse me, on that one, how does the water get from Moss Landing to?
Great question, great question. 15-mile pipeline, is that right, Taj? Taj has done the work on that, and we did contribute $10,000 to have that inserted into their EIR. Yeah, yeah. So, small sum for, maybe not likely, but it'd be a good investment if it does come to fruition. Yeah.
Okay. Bi-monthly update on CIP?
Yeah, I can cover those. We're actively preparing for the intertie between the second pipeline between service area 3 and 4. Kind of runs near the end of, near the Seascape Resort through some farmland. And we've received a bid, and we're looking at submittals, and we have a start date of just about a couple weeks away. That includes some directional drilling to go under some trees and a pressure reducing vault. So that'll occupy our team for a little bit. Should be done before rains start though, so they'll get in and out pretty quickly. About 2,000 feet of pipeline, 12-inch pipeline. We're also gonna be opening bids tomorrow. Hopefully, I say bids, maybe it'll be 1, 2, I don't anticipate more than 2, unfortunately, for the Granite Way of Well civil infrastructure, where we're gonna be putting in a pump and a motor, an electrical cabinet, and a transformer and a fence, and site paving to get that well connected to our system. It is hard to find bidders out there.
Yeah, it's pretty busy.
It's very busy. It's an odd project. It's more electrical. I mean, it's almost more of an electrical job than it is a civil underground job. So a lot of our usual suspects are not, our usual bidders are not interested. And not only that, they're busy, so they're not starving. So we've tried to send out the word, and we even extended the bid date. We'll see. We hope to get at least 1 bid. 2 would be ideal in my mind. 3 would be great, but we'll see. Those, if there is a bid, we'll bring it to the board on Tuesday to consider approval. But our other associate engineer, Bryce, is gonna move on to doing the design work for the Socal Drive main replacement project. That's a cast iron main that when it breaks, it's high pressure and it makes a mess. It lifts the road and causes $30,000–$40,000 worth of damage. $40,000 to $50,000 worth of paving repairs, not to mention usually after hours work. So
Usually losing a few 100,000 gallons of water.
that'll be from Cabrillo on to State Park along Socal Drive. It's our backbone, transmission main, and
When are you starting?
that'll probably start at the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not coinciding with Cabrillo being out, but I think any part of the year on Socal Drive. Fortunately, there is a median, or there's a turn lane that can be used to divert some of the traffic, so, or maybe even our main, we'll see. So we've got it surveyed, and he's transitioning from that first project I mentioned to that project. And then also this year's budget includes the TCP removal project, design work and CEQA work, coastal permit work. We have not yet started on that. We've been just too tied up with other developmental projects as well. The Raptus Village infrastructure is almost finished, but they're going under the railroad tracks right now. And that's all infrastructure that'll be donated or dedicated to the district, so we're inspecting that, making sure it's put in to our standards, and so that takes some resources. But that's in a nutshell, some of the active projects. Any questions on the other projects? Did I miss any? I mean, of course, the pilot surface water purchase project is, Christine's also tag teaming on that with trying. It's not as much infrastructure that we need to do, more monitoring plans and permits. Fortunately, there's less infrastructure that we don't need to do.
Any word from the State Board on Chrome 6? Are they making progress or not on that?
No, there's a little talk amongst the agencies that someone got word that they're trying to move forward with getting an MCL, a new MCL. No indication whether it be higher or lower, but that is out there.
What is it right now?
10 parts per billion.
Well,
no,
what did it used to be?
Yeah,
Or-
it was proposed at 10 parts per billion, implemented it, and then rescinded.
Okay.
There is no standard.
50 total.
Okay.
50 parts per billion is the total limit.
It's regulated under total at 50.
Too much until they make up their minds.
Thank you. I have 2 questions regarding the service area 3 and 4 intertie. I know there's going to be a good part is going to be trenchless technology. Have you done testing in that area to make sure that the adjacent railroad bed soils have not contaminated your work area?
Yes,
Okay. And they came out clean?
I don't have those
All right, because it is an organic farm, and I have a lot of concern about that. My second question, thank you. My second question is
Do you mind turning off the
I
camera?
know.
about the Granite Way well. In reviewing some of the storage tank data for the Aptos Village project contamination that was found there, they did find MTBE. And I know that that travels very quickly in groundwater, and I just, I've asked this question before, but I just want to make sure that the district will be sampling and testing the Granite Way well for the panel of contaminants that were found in the Aptos Village violations in the storage tank removal.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
All right, so we move on to reports from committee members. Anyone?
Poured out.
I don't have any really reports, but I just was, wanted to kind of share with the new folks some of the informational sources that I like to listen to. And of course, it's going to the board meetings as often as you can, looking at the agendas, seeing if there's something of particular interest to this committee or even your own personal interest. And
And by the way, you can get put on a mailing list for the agendas, so you can get the agendas beforehand. Decide whether you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to do
You'd
that.
like to do that?
Yeah. I usually just download it from the website. It's usually available the Saturday before the meeting. Another thing I really like, Mark Millen has his, kind of like his public outreach company, and he's a consultant, or has been, for Soquel Creek Water District, but I get these email blasts from him, and he grabs articles about all kinds of different water-related stuff, reuse projects throughout the state. Sometimes he reposts local newspaper articles, like the Sentinel for the Aptos Times, things like that. So it's kind of nice to get that and kind of read. They're not always perfectly accurate on everything that's in those articles. The ones that come out from, the reports that come out from, different water recycle or reuse projects are pretty accurate. But sometimes a newspaper article will misstate something, but still you get to see what the rest of the public is seeing as well. And it helps. And then there's some other meetings. There's the Mid-County Groundwater
Sustainable
Agency
groundwater.
and their subcommittee meetings. There's all kinds of that going on. They're discussing how to manage the basin that Soquel Creek is drawing from, the Mid-County. They share that, although we use most of it right now. But there's a lot of stuff going on out there that has implications on how Soquel Creek Water District,
And
will
the
fit
district
in.
has a newsletter, as does the MGA,
Yeah,
so we get put on those.
so, yeah, and you can get email notifications from all those places. So if you're interested in a lot of reading, it can.
Yeah,
So anyway, just wanted to share, that's kind of some of the stuff that I like to look at too.
yeah, and I'll add to that, you can always contact me with questions, the general manager, Ken, I think you know my email, but, or with information. Larry has sent things occasionally, and we always tout that he turned us on to some grant funding that we didn't know was available. It's been really helpful for our customers. So if you see something, not saying we'll always evaluate it, but, we'll check it out, so appreciate any ideas, any tips.
Anything else to be added? Mr. Lett?
I was just gonna say, for anybody who wants to catch up on any previous information from our board member meetings, on our website, under who we are, under board meetings and standing committees, this is where all of our agendas and board packets are posted, as well as the recorded videos, and the minutes as well, so any action that was taken. Feel free to use that as a resource if you want to look back at something to understand.
Or if you have a hard time sleeping at night, maybe.
Videos?
The other thing you guys have is quite a few documents and reports.
Oh, yeah.
That was really interesting to me.
Sometimes you can just put a
Down.
search box in Google for it.
Reports. So they're broken down into these categories, so you can filter through that way, or just do a search.
And then the publications are up there too.
Where's the SkyTem report? I've not been able to find it on your website.
Oh, the MGA's website.
I paid for it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's, we as staff use the website ourselves as just a resource, you know, we try to put everything on there. If we wanna see it, we probably think the public does too, so, very comprehensive.
Okay, well, the last agenda item was ideas for future meetings, agenda contents.
Just if there is any updates between the city of Santa Cruz and Soquel Creek Pure Water Project, and if there's any facilities that may be built in common and potentially save both entities pile of money. Be nice to know if that's being discussed, or, you know, if there's any possibility or plausibility of some of those coming to fruition. Because I believe you're under the 4,000 acre feet per year now, so it gives you a little breathing room, not a lot, but it'd be nice if, well, we'll see what happens long-term between those two entities. Now, is Scotts Valley in part of that discussion too, or not really?
I know they're in discussion with the city, but
Uh-huh.
there's nothing between us and them.
Yeah, so you only hear about it if you talk to the city about Scotts Valley may or may not be doing something similar in terms of pure water, Scotts Valley, so to speak.
Well, I know they've looked at purification, recycled water,
Mhm.
and so they're going in some of the same paths that we're going.
Right.
In fact, I look at they've already got a groundwater model and done some studies on it, which are kind of interesting. I look at those from time to time. You can go to their website, and just like ours website, find a lot of that stuff, so.
Yeah, I didn't know if there's an official or even an unofficial forum that you all discuss that in.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of communication, we can update you
Yeah,
there.
it'd be nice to know, especially if you're
Ron,
gonna
I
save
did meet
a lot of money.
Brent Haddad,
Uh-huh,
that you were referring,
yes,
he's
yes.
working on this pure water.
Right, did an economic analysis,
Yeah.
right.
Pretty good guy.
Yeah, great professor, will be giving a presentation at some point to the entire board. Some economic analysis to go in to grant funding, and is doing a paper, so that'll be presented at a future.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, very enlightening.
He also worked between us and the city during the Desal project to try and come up with something that could work for both sides.
As far as infrastructure, have I ever asked you if you have a map showing all the pipelines and their age, or is that in your district map?
We have that in our GIS map, which would be hard to provide as a PDF. And we could color code things like that. We do have those types of maps.
It's interesting to know how many years of work you have to do for replacement, and,
Oh, yeah.
It's
I
forever.
mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Doesn't it?
Goes on.
I know, I know.
Painting the golden
Taj
doors.
does have, what, 20-year project plans of things that need to be done or will need to be done.
And we've seen those?
It comes to the board occasionally.
And it is actually in your budget document, the full 20 years here, it is in the budget document.
So could I actually do something, just color code, you know, the age of the.
Yeah, that would be helpful,
And have
so we
just one
can.
map that she could print out, you know, these are 40, these are 40, 50.
56% of our mains are
You got a nice
asbestos cement,
visual.
and those haven't been installed since, probably stopped in the early 70s,
Uh-huh,
so.
It's a good
kind of-
stat.
Yeah.
yeah, so 56 are over 40 years old, 56%,
Right.
and then the rest are older or younger.
Most of it is younger, I think 35% is PVC. And then we've got,
But you don't really have as much trouble with ACP as we do in sewers, because you don't have sulfite, you know, you don't have sulfur issues that eat the pipe, right?
eat the PVC,
Yeah, no, the
but,
AC.
ACP.
no, we just have our problem areas that probably has to do with soil types. In the clubhouse area,
That's easy.
Huntington, yeah.
There's a sewer. Okay.
I have some
Something
ideas.
and
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think some very interesting topics would be to invite Dr. Helen Dahlke from UC Davis to come and talk about some of the recharge studies that she's doing. It was at this group's meeting that I first met Dr. Rosemary Knights, and I thought that was an amazing talk. So I would really appreciate Dr. Dahlke coming, as well as Andy Fisher locally. He's doing some excellent work with the Recharge Initiative, and I think that would be an interesting presentation. I also think inviting John Ricker at any time is a good thing, just to hear what he has to say. And also Brian Lockwood from the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency and some of their work that they're doing there. I know you talk with him personally, but I think for the group to hear what he has to say. They are the neighboring groundwater basin, so it would be great to have him give a presentation to this group. Thank you.
Well, Andy has presented to us on recharge
Yeah,
before.
they all
You've had Dr. Dahlke here? Oh, okay.
Don't know him. Or- Okay. Well, I guess then, if there's nothing else, we'd be done. It says here adjournment. Next meeting is October 9th.
This, we need to park the dog.